Nouriel Roubini, thank you very much for talking to Business Spectator. Well, you're here this morning, of course, in Perth, speaking to CHOGM, and in your key address to the forum this morning, quite a negative presentation in that you believe the chance of a double-dip recession remains in both the US and Europe. Has anything in the last fortnight changed your view? We've had quite strong equity markets.
Well, in the last 10 days or 2 weeks, global markets that had sharply fallen in August and September have gone up, and have gone up for two reasons. One is that there is a hope that the Europeans are going to come with a plan that is credible. Two, some of the economic data from the United States have been slightly better, reducing the concerns about the double-dip recession. Now, on the first one, as I pointed out, the Europeans are going to come with a plan about Greece, about recapitalizing the banks, and about providing at least some short-term additional liquid support for Italy and Spain through a leveraged EFSF. But I think that over the next few weeks and months, after the first kind of bout of relief, people are going to realize the Eurozone is entering a recession. Yesterday's data on the PMIs from the Eurozones were just awful. And as I pointed out, if there is not going to be economic growth, any financial engineering is not going to be sustainable. Even reducing the debt, like in Greece, resolves your debt problem. It doesn't resolve your competitiveness problem. To have a competitiveness restoration, you need the economic growth, you need the real depreciation, you need a much weaker euro. That's not going to happen, and eventually people are going to realize this is not sustainable, and we're going to go back to risk off as opposed to risk on. And even the data from the United States, in my view, are mixed. Many of them are still poor. The first estimate of US GDP growth are biased always upward because they come from sample of larger companies and larger retailers who are doing well, while indicators coming from smaller retailers and smaller companies suggest that they are in a depression. So there's a bias in the initial estimates of growth data. So GDP growth in the US might come out 2.5%. First estimate for Q3 is going to be revised downward over time. The same reason why first quarter GDP came out 1.5%, then was revised to 0.4 when we got then new data. So I think US economy is much weaker than people are making it. So I think that rally is going to fizzle out.
Which countries, you specifically said in the forum that certain countries should leave the Union. Can you name the countries?
Well, in my view, the first one is not going to be able to make it is Greece. Greece is going to have a debt reduction, but growth is not going to come back because of the competitiveness problem. And restoring competitiveness through weakening of the euro is not going to happen because the euro is not going to go to parity. Restoring competitiveness by increasing productivity growth and keeping elite on wages below productivity growth is going to take too long. It took 15 years for Germany to achieve that. That's not going to happen fast enough for restoring growth. Having deflation in Greece is not going to be a solution. You'll have to reduce wages and prices by 30% over the next few years because deflation is associated with depression. No country is going to accept another 3 to 5 years of depression to achieve that reduction in prices and wages to restore competitiveness. And even if by miracle you were able to do that deflation, the real value of your debt is going to go up by 30%, so you're even more insolvent. So if you cannot devalue yourself to a real depreciation and competitiveness, if you cannot grow yourself or deflate yourself, the only other option is to exit, go back to your national currency, have a nominal real depreciation, and have a significant restoration of your competitiveness. Greece is going to be the first one. I think Portugal, to me, looks like Greece in terms of fundamental lack of competitiveness over the medium term. I think that probably Ireland has a fighting chance to be able to avoid that fate just because, unlike Greece and Portugal, they have a very large industrial base. The Googles and Microsofts and Intels of the world have been doing a huge amount of investment in Ireland, so they have a manufacturing base that can be a source of growth and productivity and export. In Greece and Portugal, you have olive oil, wine, and tourism, and not much else. And then, so Greece and Portugal are the first one. But as I pointed out, if there's not going to be a restoration of growth in the periphery of the Eurozone, and a year from now, even with a bazooka of a leveraged EFSF, Italy and Spain are still borrowing at rates that are too high, and the only reason why the rates don't blow up is because there is the bazooka, and you're going to run out of money, then even Italy and Spain could lose market access, the spread become unsustainable, and even then an orderly debt reduction or restructuring of Italy and Spain is not sufficient, and eventually if you don't restore competitiveness, you'll have a problem with economic growth. And eventually that could be the reason why you have a breakup of the Eurozone.